you on our session, Katyayani. I'm going to ask you what Nordic food is, what Nordic cuisine is, and how you came to cook these wonderful things. And I'm not going to take much more of your time, and I'm going to ask you to take the lead and jump into it.
So, hello everybody. Namaste. I'm Katyayani Bhargava. As Sanjana ma'am said, I'm a chef by profession, and I'm also the owner of Kippis. So it is Kippis. That's how you pronounce it.
Kippis. Okay.
And Kippis by Immigrants is a new vegetable which just started a couple of months back. And Kippis itself means cheers. So the idea of Kippis was born during lockdown. That you still want to have parties and in the comfort of a home, safe, away from the pandemic. So yeah, that's how we wanted to get Nordic or maybe North European inspired food to everybody. And that's why I wanted to introduce this cuisine. Because primarily the cuisine itself is very healthy. So Nordic people have one of the longest life expectancy, and that's primarily because their food comprises a lot of fish and everything. So the food has a lot of, since they're consuming fish so much, their food has a lot of omega-3, which is very good for your body. And yes, so their staples include a lot of cheese and things like that. So I've tried to sort of bring to you some dishes which are similar to my cuisine. And the Nordic area, like we say, it comprises of a few countries like Poland, Ireland, all of those, Iceland, Irish cuisine. So, and the influence of food there is from German cuisine, Russian cuisine. So yeah, so that's the brief of maybe Nordic food. And so I'm trying to.
So let me interrupt you there because let me just tell the viewers that the Nordic countries are actually Sweden, Norway, Denmark, Iceland, and
Finland.
Yes, Finland.
Right?
Yeah, so that's where the name also comes from. Kippis it's a Finnish word which means cheers. It's to raise a toast. That's where the word comes from. And
so here we raise a toast to a brilliant session ahead.
I'm glad to be here, and yeah, thank you for the opportunity. It's lovely to be, being able to access everybody through this medium and show what we do. I hope you like what we're doing today. So we're doing three things today. We're basically doing a soup, a mains, and a dessert. We're doing spinach and cashew nut soup, which is vegan and can also be made gluten-free. And then we're doing the Polish fish dish, which is it's a Christmas special, because in Poland they don't really have meat for Christmas. On the Christmas Eve they don't consume meat. It's a meatless event, so they have fish instead. And so the dish is ryba po grecku. It's basically inspired from a Greek dish, but yeah, it's a patent dish from Poland. So that's what it's one of the main dishes over a Christmas dinner. And so yeah, we're doing that, and then we're doing the apple crumble. So if we can maybe that's what we're going to do today. If we can start, let me know.
Sure. So you're going to start with the spinach soup?
No, so we start with the dessert first.
Oh, lovely. I think Raj is going to be very excited.
Yeah, let me just see if the frame is fine for all of you. Let me just tell you.
Yeah, I am.
It is. Perfect.
Okay. Yeah, so we start the dessert because we're supposed to bake it for a little longer, so it can go in the oven. So we have apples here. So I have about a kilo of apple. I have used green apple. So you can use normal apple also, and I've sort of diced them in cubes. Just say about half, 3/4 of an inch. All of them. I don't know if you can see them. Is it close enough? Yeah, so we've got the apples here, and they've been poured with. So I just put a little lemon juice over them. Is there in the recipe? So you put the lemon juice over cut apples so that they don't oxidize and retain the color. So we take the apples. We take the brown sugar. So it's about 90 grams of brown sugar. You can use white sugar, castor sugar. If you don't have brown sugar, that's fine. 2 tablespoons of flour. So what the flour does is, when your apples leave a lot of moisture, it doesn't really become very gluggy. I have cinnamon. We put say about 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon powder. So my special addition to this is that I put a little bit of black pepper. You can skip it if you don't like. I like the flavor of black pepper with cinnamon. It just sort of adds the entire taste.
I would never add black pepper to apple crumbles, so that's a new
Yeah,
ingredient.
so black pepper to your apple crumbles, or if you're doing an apple pie, anything with apple and cinnamon, black pepper tends to sort of taste. I mean, because enhance the flavor. And also, so I use 90 grams because I was using green apple. If you're using normal red apple, then maybe if you want, you can reduce the amount of brown sugar or sugar, whichever sugar you're using. And then I sort of put in the raisins as well. This was about 1/4 cup of raisins, a handful. You can completely avoid the raisins if you don't like them. So that's the apple mixture. That's going to go. For the crumble, we're going to take this is 1 cup of flour, normal maida. 1 cup of oats. So these are just old-fashioned oats. They're just rolled oats. Can you see? So
Right.
these
Yeah.
are not the instant oats. These are not instant oats primarily because the texture is going to be. I mean, the texture for these is slightly stiff, so they hold the shape and everything, and it will just make it a little more crisp on the front.
Can you substitute if you don't have these with whatever you have at home?
I mean, I would suggest that you get them. You get them online also very easily. They're very easily available. Just you have to tell them that you want old-fashioned oats or rolled oats.
Okay.
It's just not. Yeah, they're easily available in any of your supermarket. If you don't, you can completely skip it. I mean, I would not suggest adding instant oat because the instant oat will take up a lot of moisture, and then your crumble will not become so crisp on top because your apples are supposed to be soft and mushy. So your entire thing, the textures will not. I mean, you'll not be able to differentiate between the textures then.
Right.
So that's the reason why. Then we take some brown sugar. Again, it's there in the recipe. This is about ½ a cup. If you want to still go a little less with your sugar, you can reduce the amount of sugar. And this is say about 120 grams of unsalted butter, Amul butter if you get. If you don't get, I'm okay with normal Amul butter also. Salted also is fine. Salt and sugar, they go there. This is just softened, and I sort of try to break them and cut them into smaller cubes where you can rub them in. 1 spoon of honey. Yeah. That's about it. I'm gonna just quickly break everything and bring everything together. So when you're trying to do this, just sort of make sure that you don't rub it too much also. But yes, you've got to get a grainy, nice texture where you got the butter incorporated into the oats and flour very nicely. So you'll have to it'll take a couple of minutes, sorry. And you must rub it nicely also so that you don't have lumps of butter, which will not be rubbed into the flour.
And the butter needs to be slightly chilled.
So in winters, I mean, if you have butter at room temperature, that works fine because it's soft. You don't want melted butter. You can't really use melted butter for a crumble. You would want it to be, say, if I'm pressing it, it's it still has texture. It's holding its shape.
Right.
So it's not supposed to be very soft, but yeah, I mean, you should be able to work with it. Rub them between your palms, it's just going to be easier. If you have a KitchenAid or a stand mixer, that also works well. You don't want to do it with your hands, works. But I mean, not everybody would have a stand mixer, so you can definitely do it with hands. It's not a problem.
I think that's the fun of making the apple crumble. When you
Yeah,
try and
exactly.
put it all together.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly why I did not choose to show it. You know, I mean, you could do it by a stand mixer too, but that's not. It doesn't really. I mean, it would not hamper the effect even if you do it in the stand mixer.
Sure.
If you don't have much time, you can definitely go ahead with that too. So yeah, so some of it is clumpy, some of it is not. It's almost like a grainy sand texture here. But you have to make sure that everything is like nicely mixed in. And then you can sort of just leave it aside. I'm just going to quickly wash my hands so that we can start assembling them.
If you have any questions, we will keep them for towards the end. Or maybe once she finishes this recipe, we can ask her if you have one or two questions, not too many.
Yeah, I mean, even if you have some doubts, maybe you can just sort of post them in the comments and one of you could just read them out for me.
Sure.
So that I could, I mean, if there are some things that you need to know. Also, if you don't want to use oats, you can definitely go ahead with eggs. I mean, you could be using any sort of a nut also. You could use almond or walnut powder, which is sort of roughly blitz almond in the mixie. So it's not very, I mean, it's not very fine also. And then you can add that to it. So you replace it with something which is even more healthier, and you can consume nuts also that way. So
that's a very interesting option you've given. I would never have thought about that.
Yeah, so almond and everything, I mean, so it just makes it a little more healthier. I mean, takes away, not that it is sinful, but yeah, it just takes away from the guilt of having so much sugar and everything. Though I have used brown sugar. So I am taking ramekins. If you want, you can just maybe take any sort of an oven safe dish. Maybe something like this would also work if you want it for a gathering.
Sure.
But this, I mean, this just makes it look a little more presentable, and then you can serve them individually. So if you have like a kilo, you will be able to easily take out 6 to 8 ramekins or dishes, whichever you find with serving in the oven. That goes in the oven, which is oven proof.
I think चाय डाल दो.
So you must not, in the apple mixture, you must not forget to add flour if you're using raw apples. I mean, I would personally use raw apples because they hold, even after baking, they hold like a little texture, they're not all mushy. So you must add flour to it because otherwise it's going to leave a lot of liquid which you do not want. So this was about 900 grams of apple that I had taken and I'm still left with. So I would have easily been able to sort of get 8 bowls. This is 6 that we have. And that's the crumble mixture that I have. So I'm going to quickly put some as it is as powder. Some I might just clump up a little so that, you know, like a little cookie sort of a bread, biscuit sort of a texture.
I would be happy to come and taste when people try making these crumbles.
Yeah, you can definitely make them over Christmas.
Maybe we can have a little get together and everybody can bring their version of the apple crumble to the club. I think it would be a great get together.
It's the reason for celebration, yeah, food.
Yes, fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
Actually, it's just with the times that we are in, bigger gatherings, they tend to sort of scare everybody. So that's also one of the reasons why I sort of tried to plan this business. But we don't have like really big gatherings, but then we can definitely enjoy some really good fine dining food at home without much effort. So I don't like a lot of biscuit texture on top, so I'm not putting a lot. But if you want, you can go ahead. I mean, since you could be serving this with some sort of an ice cream or custard, whatever you want. So the oven I had preheated the oven at 180, and we're going to bake this for approximately 15 to 20 minutes, depending on how big your dish is and what you're sort of trying to make. If you're taking a bigger dish, it will take a little more longer. And if they're smaller, then you can definitely take a little less while in the oven. We have 6 of them. Put them in the oven at 180.
Wonderful.
Make sure that your fan in the oven is on, so that there's just enough room for air to sort of circulate in the oven.
Great.
Sorry, for how long do you have to bake this?
So the ramekins are going to take approximately 17 to 20 minutes. If you're doing like a ceramic dish, bigger, then it could take up to like 25 minutes maybe in the oven. It also depends on I mean, I would not want to specify minutes particularly because it depends on each oven that you have. It might take longer, sometimes even at 180 for different ovens, the settings could be a little haywire. So around 180 to 190 is a good baking temperature for this. And say the time could be anything between 17 to 25 minutes, depending on how big the dish is or how much more crumble you want to add on top of it. So it just needs to sort of cook. The crumble needs to cook basically. And I mean, a lot of people like to cook their apples too for this. I don't particularly like to cook the apple or stew the apple, because then the entire apple mixture sort of tends to become really mushy. So then you don't have any taste. I mean, of course, it'll taste only like stewed apples and you'll not have the texture or the firmness of the apples. So as we have put the oven, the apple crumble in the oven, we're going to start with the soup. And I'll tell you how we do the soup next. The soup itself is vegan. It can definitely be made gluten-free also. We're not using any cream or cheese or butter, anything. So
I think why don't you make it with everything in it, and then we will omit whatever we don't want to add to it.
I'm going to teach you with maida and everything, with flour in it. But you can definitely just skip maida, and it will not taste. I mean, it will not hamper the taste. Not at all.
Sure. Okay.
Not miss flour in it. So for this, the things that I basically have, I think it's there in the recipe. I need garlic. I have coriander, along with the stems. We just skip the root and then I've just chopped them with the stem. 1 bay leaf, cashew nut, onion, parsley for the garnish. Then I have say about half a kilo of spinach. I tried to get baby spinach and just remove the end tips, and then I've just blanched them in hot water for say about 30-40 minutes, seconds or to a minute. And then you just refresh it under cold water, maybe running water from the tap, because it's winter, the water is cold. Otherwise, in summers, you can always add ice to the water and then sort of refresh so that the color of the spinach remains intact. Now, what I'm going to do is the spinach, half a kilo, and say about half a cup of coriander with the stems. I'm just going to add them together and blitz them to make a paste, like a sort of puree sort of a thing. And now that I'm adding my additional water to it, because the spinach itself has like a lot of water once it's blanching. For the base, we're just going to take some oil, about 1 to 2 tablespoons of oil. Put in the bay leaf.
So in Nordic cuisine, you use coriander Or is that something which?
Okay, so the herbs that you usually get in Nordic cuisine would be rosemary, dill,
Mhm.
so parsley. Coriander is my addition to it. Let me tell you, it just makes the spinach soup a lot more flavorful. Because per se, I mean, I've tried to make people like spinach in different ways. So yeah, coriander helps me do that. Just a
Yeah,
little
because
bit.
the spinach here tastes different from, overseas. Because each vegetable has its own flavor. Different places have different flavors.
Also, it's about the life of I mean, at what time are you harvesting it? Because sometimes if you don't, I mean, if you have like really, I mean, I try to get the most tender baby spinach that you get very nicely in winter. So it's not very bitter also, and it's got a nice soft taste to it. It's not very
Yeah.
bitter. So there's garlic and there's onion. I'm going to wait nicely for the garlic to sort of turn brown, golden brown. Uh, and that's about half an onion, which are finely chopped. You can just chop it. This is anyway going to go again into a blender to make a puree. They would want to use white onion, which is easily accessible to them. We have red onion, it's fine. And also, like, so the entire cuisine we try to get is so I'm saying that it's all Nordic inspired food, but yeah, I'm also trying to incorporate the local ingredients because even the fish that they use is herring or salmon, which is not locally sourced from here. So I'm trying to incorporate things which are also locally sourced because I don't want to incorporate a lot of, I mean, that's what I've learned working at a scratch kitchen and a slow food kitchen that we try to incorporate more of the locally sourced food or food producers and then sort of, I mean, the flavors can be molded anyway, however you want.
That makes it easier for one to prepare these dishes as well, because otherwise, you're always hunting for ingredients otherwise.
Exactly. I mean, the dishes that I chose today also per se were things that everybody will be able to lay their hands on in the market. All of it is absolutely easily available. I mean, I've tried to do things that you don't really need very fussy ingredients for.
I think you need to come slightly closer because we can't hear you very clearly, Katyayani. Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, this also better look wise. I mean, I think this is going to be closer to me.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, we would like to look at you as well. So not just what's cooking on the pan.
Yeah. I
I
actually
know
don't.
it's a bit difficult to get the angles right when one is cooking and talking at the same time. But wonderful. Great.
So once almost the onions are cooked, they're translucent. That's when I add the cashew nuts also. I am sort of going to just roast them with this. If you don't want to roast them, you can just sort of activate them in water, and that will also help making your puree. Basically, you just want to cook the cashew nuts also. If you just activate them, then you have to cook the puree later for a longer period, which I don't want to do. If you have any questions, maybe you can ask me. You can just post it. That Sanjana can ask me.
Are there any questions? Please write it in the chat box. People normally like to ask the questions themselves at the end of the session. So,
Sure.
and we encourage that because it makes, a sense of participation for the viewers as well. So we
No,
love you to participate. Yeah, it's
that's
looking
sometimes,
nice and brown now.
yeah. So it's almost like, I mean, the onions are slightly brown and the cashew are also getting like a little golden color. So once that is done, I would want that to get, if you can see the cashews don't know, they're sort of getting that toasted shade also on them.
Can you actually roast the cashew nuts separately or do it
Yeah,
before?
of course you can do it. Of course you can do it. I mean, people have soup maker also at home these days. You could just
Right.
do this in the soup maker, then add your spinach. You would not even have to puree them separately. Just put them all in that way. I mean,
Wonderful.
this is supposed to cook together,
Right.
basically.
Oh,
But I mean, you can definitely roast the cashew separately. Now that everything is roasted nicely, I will take it off flame. For this, you will need a little water while blitzing. I will take off the bay leaves when blitzing, and I'll make a smooth puree of this. I'll have to wait for like a couple of minutes for that mixture to cool down. Try not to put extremely hot things in the mixie because it's just not, you're not supposed to do that. Also, when you're doing the spinach, so since it's winters right now, and any amount of, I mean, the spinach was cold per se at room temperature itself. If you're doing this in summer, I would advise you to just put one piece of ice cube whenever you're doing spinach so that it retains really nice green color. If not, I mean, this trick you can use for your chutneys and everything, all green purees that you make. You can always add a few pieces of ice cube in the mixie because there's heat induced in the mixie itself. And that tends to sort of darken your spinach puree. That's what basically it
that's a
does.
wonderful tip. Thank you for sharing that with us.
You're welcome. Okay, so in the meanwhile, I can also tell you what I did with the fish. So for the fish dish, I took about 500 grams of boneless fish. I have taken sole. You can take basa or ravas or sumai, whatever you find. Just try to take like a white fish. Don't take a very oily fish. I mean, like salmon and everything is not very. It not taste very good. It tastes better with a white fish. And you can tell your vendor to just maybe fillet it for you so that you can get cubes. So I've cut them in this size cubes, say about 2 inches. And the marination recipe is there in the recipes that Sanna ma'am will share with you. What's gone in the marination is say about 1 to 2 tablespoons of ginger garlic paste, 1 tablespoon of oil, say about 1/4 teaspoon of smoked paprika powder. So that's what smoked paprika powder is. It's got a very smoky, charred chili taste. If you don't get smoked paprika, you can use normal paprika or even Kashmiri mirch. I would still suggest that paprika you get everywhere. I mean, so try using paprika and ginger garlic, 1 lemon per juice, and salt and pepper. If you have white pepper, go ahead use white pepper. If you have black pepper, I use black pepper. So I've just marinated this about 40-45 minutes back. But I would expect you to at least marinate it for 20-25 minutes. Not very long, not for very long because so the fish starts cooking in the marination also, or curing as you would want to say. So we don't want that to happen. For that, you must not marinate fish for longer than maybe an hour ever. 1 or 2 hours at the max. Don't leave marinated fish overnight. It's not really, I mean, that it just hampers with the texture, nothing per se the taste. But yeah, like we say that we tend to marinate meats for much longer. We don't really need to do that with fish or seafood, any other seafood. And yes, so we can replace fish. You can replace with chicken if you want, boneless breast. You can use the same marination, same technique. Only the time will change in the oven. And for vegetarian option, I feel tofu fits best for this. You could just take normal tofu, not silken tofu, and marinate it the same way, grill it the same way. Of course, I mean, with tofu, you would not need to put it in the oven, but you can just maybe put it in the oven so that it sort of absorbs the flavor from the sauce. The other thing is, ideally, this fish is just grilled and then baked with the sauce. But some people tend to sort of breadcrumb it and fry it. If you want to go that way, you can do that also with the fish. Maybe you can just make a little egg slurry, egg and water slurry, and then mix a little breadcrumbs from there, dust it, and then fry, and then put the sauce over and then bake it. Grilled fish is healthier, so I'm just going to grill the fish and then put it in for baking. That's what I did with the fish. I'm going to get back with the soup. So when you're trying to make the cashew paste, just make sure that it's really smooth. Because otherwise you'll get bits of cashew. I don't want to strain the soup. If you want, you can always strain the soup. I don't want to strain the soup because all the food that we're adding to the soup is healthy. There's nothing that you would want to remove out from the soup. Everything is edible. So the crumbled fumi was there in the oven for 15 minutes. I put it just for 2 more minutes. I think 17 minutes will be good for those ramekin sizes. I'm using oil. If you want to use butter, you can go ahead and use butter. Yeah, so that's how the almond and onion paste should look like. It's smooth. You don't have it clumpy. I did add water to it for making it smooth.
These induction cookers heat up really quickly, don't they?
Yeah, they do. So I put oil again, say about 2 tablespoons, 1 to 2 tablespoons. Also, whenever you're doing like a basic roux for any soup or sauce, what ideally or practically we learn, theoretically rather, we learn that you should always use the same amount of fat and flour. But whatever I've learned, practically I've learned that if you add just about a little more fat, which is either oil or butter, your roux will not turn clumpy. Roux basically is the base for any white sauce or any other thing that you want to sort of you use for thickening any sauce, any curry, soup. So if you just tend to add a little more fat than flour, then it works just fine. So I'm just going to use about 1 spoon of flour in this, in the fat, to sort of get it together. It looks something like this. Just 1 spoon, not much. That's also because if you might, you might not want it to curdle. So after the flour and butter or oil mix, whatever you want to choose, I'm going to add the paste back to this. So these are the garlic, onion, and cashew. Just stir it around for like a little second. Yeah. So the stock that is mentioned in the recipe, I'm just sort of using it to sort of start becoming really hot. And to the mixture, I will also add the finished meat, all of it.
Was that chicken stock or vegetable stock? What did you add in there?
It's a vegetable stock.
Okay.
So all the peels that are there after any day of cooking that you do in your kitchen, basically all your peels, whether it's garlic, carrot, onion, anything, tomatoes, just make sure that you sort of keep collecting it. Wash it nicely, maybe once or twice, so that you get rid of any mittis if there is. And then put it together with 1 bay leaf, a few peppercorns and just let it simmer like for, if it's a veg stock, then maybe it will work in just 30-40 minutes. Let it simmer nicely. Add water, cover it. And yeah, then you can just strain and use. So this stock you could also sort of freeze. Maybe just make say a liter of stock and let it reduce a little if you want to store it for longer. If you want to store it for longer, just reduce it to say half amount, and then you can put it in ice tray and then put it in the freezer. Sorry, you can freeze it say about for good 1 or 2 weeks. It will last you. You don't have to make stock cubes again and again.
Wow. So you can
Yeah.
actually use all the peels and
Per se, most of the peels usually, I mean, yeah, you need onion peels, carrot peels, ginger if you want to use that. So
and
yeah,
then
this
you
is what.
sieve it, I presume. Once all the then you sieve the
Yeah, you sift
stock.
off all the peels. Yes, yes. You sift off all the peels. You let it boil for like 40 minutes, 30-40 minutes. If you want to make say about a liter of stock, then you end up taking 1.5 liters of water approximately. And if you want to, I mean, and then you can reduce it as much. If you have bigger ice cube, more number of trays, you want to make more stock, depending on that. Now this is the spinach and cashew paste mixture. It's gonna look like this.
Wow.
And,
Looks
yeah.
very nice and green. The
Yeah.
color is lovely.
Yes. So for that, you need to make sure while blitzing you add like the temperature of the spinach is really nice. I mean, you can't blitz warm spinach. If you do that, then you lose on the color. That's why I said if you're doing it in summer, I would definitely add a piece of ice in the blender itself so that the heat sort of gets neutralized from the mixing. So that's how your soup base will be like. Okay, this was 1 liter, say about 800 grams, 800 ml of stock that I used. And this is going to thicken up as it cooks. It's going to cook for at least 10-15 minutes. Let it boil nicely.
Mm-hmm.
And it will thicken up because there's cashew and there's flour. Yeah.
Right.
So as you want the consistency of it, I don't really like very thick soup, so I'm going to add a little more water to it and then let it simmer. So this is again, say half a bottle of water that I've added.
There's a related question.
Yes.
When you pressure cook the peels for the stock instead of simmering it.
Yeah, you can. Yes.
Okay.
But then the entire concept of pressure cooking is that you sort of evaporate the water which is there in the pressure cooker. So you'll have to like add a lot of water, make sure that you have enough water in it. And I would still say that you reduce it because when you pressure cooker it, you're trying to break the food smaller, faster, which is not the idea behind having a stock. The entire concept of having a stock is where you let the vegetables or bone or meat, whatever, let it slow cook. So you're not cooking it on very high flame. You're letting it slow cook, let all the flavors, aroma sort of extract from those vegetables. That's the whole idea behind having a stock. Otherwise, nowadays you even get stock cubes. If you want a quicker fix, you have stock cubes. I mean, but yes, you can definitely freeze stock. So if you're making it over the weekend, make cubes and then you can keep them for a little longer. So once the
So ideally, it's best not to pressure cook it.
best not
is better.
Yeah, you just put it in any pot or a patila that you have. Put all the peels, let it just simmer for like half an hour. It will reduce. It will look like a little brownish, palish yellow in color. Vegetable stock, that is. If you want to do the chicken stock, you can do just chicken bones. Maybe if you're getting boneless chicken someday, you can tell your vendor to give you the bones separately. Make chicken stock and keep.
So in the chicken, to make the chicken stock, you just add bay leaf and peppercorns. Is that all, or do you add anything else?
There's something called as Maya. It's come from the French cooking, which is basically your onion, garlic, carrot, any of the vegetables that you can add as aromats to your food. Basically, the flavoring agents. So if you just do chicken, it's not going to taste very nice. So you want some sort of an aroma with the stock. So best, I mean, the most easily available is onion and garlic. Just do onion and garlic and you sort it. If you have carrot, go ahead with it. If you have celery, anything like that, celery. Okay, so celery, you will use the stalks and not the leaves. So whenever you're using them, so the leaves can definitely go to the stalk. You usually don't end up eating celery leaves. They're not edible that way. So you can use them in the stalk. They'll add the flavor, do their job, and then you can sort of remove them. So that way you're not wasting anything else.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So that's the soup. I'm going to just put it on the stove inside. Let it simmer it for 10-15 minutes. I've just added salt and pepper. We'll just add, not added pepper yet. I'll add pepper later. So that's the soup. We'll get on to doing the fish sauce now.
Wow, that soup is going to be perfect. Even today, I think we can quickly prepare it because it doesn't take too long to do. So,
Yeah, yes, they're not, I mean, the kind of cooking that I myself like to do is where we're not hampering too much with the food. I mean, too much of, that's how I was drawn to this kind of cooking or cuisine, where you do not end up, where you let the food speak for itself. Most of the food has a lot of flavor in them itself. You don't want to add too much of masala, overhandling, too much of processes on them. So that's why. So that's the reason this soup. That's why I don't want to strain it, things like that, because everything in it is edible. I mean, if you want it really smooth, you can still strain it. If you just feel that there are a few lumps of cashew nut that you want to get rid of. But I personally, I'm okay with that, so I don't really strain the soup. So that's the pan for the sauce. We're doing a basic tomato sauce, but then this has a lot of vegetables in the sauce itself. So for this, we've got.
It's a beautiful tray of vegetables. Maybe I should take a photo of that.
I can send a picture, maybe.
Perfect. That'd be lovely. Nice.
Yeah.
So many different colors on a plate.
Yeah. So it's basically what I learned over the years is whenever we're consuming a lot of meat. I mean, I'm a big meat lover myself, but I've come to realize that most of the meat needs a lot of flavor, and the flavor usually ends up coming from the vegetables. Whichever vegetable you choose to, I mean, you could be eating boiled chicken and you would definitely not like the taste of it until unless there's a lot of garlic, onion, anything, whether it's Indian cuisine or any other cuisine. So you definitely need the vegetables. I'm again putting it on saute. Vegetable oil again. It's about 3 tablespoons, not much oil.
So,
yeah.
Can you use olive oil because
you can use olive oil, you can use canola oil, whatever you want. All of it is good. I mean, sometimes you could even try using mustard oil with it. It's not going to make a lot of difference. You can try using it. Mustard oil, a lot of people find it very healthy. So, yeah, go ahead with mustard oil.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, you can take that one for the soup. So once the oil is hot, I'm going to add 2 bay leaves to this. Garlic, chopped garlic. Not really bothered. Cashew, can you just take this away? It also depends on the pan actually. That pan was a little thin at the bottom. That's why the pan got heated up really fast. This one is taking its own sweet time. Yeah, so once you see that the bay leaves started crackling a little, I'm going to add onion. This is one medium onion, 70 grams approximately, which is fine chopped. You can use a chopper for it. If you want to grate it, grate the onion. Whichever way is easier for you. It's really finely chopped. We're actually cooking from my studio where we send out the food from, and I'm actually using the pastry area for a change for the class. So we don't really have an exhaust this side. We have it in the hot kitchen. We don't really need that kind of thing. So once the onion is a little cooked, slightly cooked, that's when I add the garlic. So one big chunk of garlic, chopped fine, and about a little lesser than the ginger garlic, but this is chopped ginger.
This looks like masala for any Indian
Yes,
curry.
this is very similar. Okay, so the inspiration of the dish is like I told you, it's from Greek, and Greek cuisine is pretty. I mean, not I would not say extremely close to what Indian cooking is like, but they use like a lot of spices, and their onion tomato mixture is also there. So that's how you get your. I mean, the base of this sauce is also like that. Mama. If you want, you can add more oil to this. I particularly don't feel the need to add more oil to any which is, I mean, a healthier gravy. I don't want to add more oil. This is enough to sort of cook the onions and garlic. If you want to reduce the amount of oil even further, use a non-stick pan. If you use a non-stick pan, you would not even need I mean, the amount of oil that I ended up using. Just deglazing it with a little water. So whenever you see the masala sticking to the base, it is never because of the onion. We tend to feel that it is because of the onion. It's never because of the onion. It's because of the garlic that the masala sticks at the bottom. So that's why I don't like to use the garlic puree or I mean like pulp form garlic because then it sort of tends to stick more. So if you have chopped garlic, it does stick a little, but not stick so much. And then you can obviously deglaze the pan with a little water. Nice browning. We add to the flavor of the food. So once your onion and garlic and everything is cooked, that's when I'm going to add some chili flakes to this. You can completely skip the chili flake part if you don't like it spicy. Their food is not supposed to be very spicy, but yeah, I mean, it has to be a little flavorful. So I use about half a teaspoon of chili flakes, not much, and smoked paprika powder. So this is their replacement of our lal mirch that we use. It's got a very earthy flavor. The smoked version of the paprika, you get normal paprika also, you get smoked paprika also. Got a very smoky, woody flavor in the smoked one, which is again very typical to a lot of Russian and Polish cuisine. Once your onion is nicely cooked, that's when you add the tomato puree. So I have taken about 4 to 5 tomatoes, medium-sized tomatoes. If you want to remove the skin, you can always sort of blanch them in hot water, remove them, peel them, and then rinse them. But when you're making a puree like this, where the sauce is really chunky and you have a lot of vegetables, the peels won't really matter. So I've used 4 to 5 tomatoes, medium puree, and just to get a little more of that tangy taste from the tomato concentrate that you usually get in the market, you can always use like some sort of tomato puree. I'm just using homemade tomato puree. It's very easily available. So I'm just going to mix both of them to get that flavor. If you don't want, you can completely skip the market bought puree. So once your onion and tomato is done, that's when you add. Once your onion and garlic is done, onion garlic ginger mixture. Once it's done, I'm going to add the tomatoes. So this is approximately 200 grams of tomato puree. I'm going to use half of this. Now this is going to take a little while for it to cook. You even get canned tomatoes in the market if you want to replace it. So the canned tomatoes are going to be tangier if you want to. And okay, so the recipe also says that we add red wine to it. If you have red wine, well and good. If you don't have red wine, you can replace it with red wine vinegar, or you can absolutely completely skip it also. I have red wine, so I'm going to use the red wine. So the red wine is going to add to the tartness of the sauce. And if you do not wish to open a new bottle for wine, usually sometimes for cooking, you can maybe say once, whenever you have a gathering and you left with an open bottle, put it in the fridge. And so after 3-4 days, your wine is no longer wine. So it's then vinegar itself. Basically, your red wine vinegar is like your normal red wine, which is left to sort of sour a little more. So any bottle which is open and you've not been using it, you can just put it in the fridge, and with time it will become vinegar. Of course, when you're using this vinegar or wine that has become vinegar, you have to use a little lesser quantity than the wine that is mentioned in any recipe. So that was half a cup of wine. I have the other vegetables, and contrary to what, like a lot of gravies that we make, we add the celery, carrot, everything with the onion in the beginning. Here we're going to add them later so that we can extract like most flavors from it, and we don't let the vegetables die without sort of. I mean, they don't taste like themselves. They would taste like all your carrot and red pepper and celery, everything in the sauce when you sort of tend to add them a little later. Only percent of this recipe, if you're using any, I mean, you can't really use the same trick for making all the sauces that you do the traditional way where you cook the onions, carrot, all of that prior to putting the tomatoes. Once you see this started cooking, that's when I'm going to, I know, so this is going to take about 5 to 7 minutes to cook completely. That's when I'm going to add carrot. So this is just normal red carrot. Now we're getting it in the season. We're getting red carrot. This is about 2 carrots that has been grated from the thickest side of your grater.
So do you add the white part as well, or just the red?
Yeah, the white part is fine. The white part is absolutely fine. See, like I told you, I do not like to waste a lot of food, especially the food that is absolutely consumable and healthy. There's absolutely no problem with you eating the white part of the carrot. I mean the yellow, paler color of the carrot, and as long as it's going in the gravy, why would you want to skip or waste either way? So this sauce is not going to be very thin or runny. It's more of it's really thick and clumpy. So it's almost like a sort of vegetable stew sort of a sauce that goes on with the fish.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you want to bake this with the sauce. Now if you can see it, it's already thick. It's pretty thick already.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's when, I mean, with the carrot, along with the carrot, this is one stalk of celery, one stalk of leek. If there's no hard and fast rule that you have to have celery or leeks for it, just grab whatever you have. If you have leeks, well and good. If you don't have leeks, fine that way also. This is about so I had a smaller red bell pepper, so I've used the entire thing. If you have like a bigger red pepper, then you use say half of it, and I've just chopped it really fine. As you can see, that also goes in with this. If you do not like the taste of red bell pepper, you can skip it. But I would suggest that you do not replace it with green bell pepper for sure. Because, like I said, paprika, bell peppers, they're all very, I mean, these flavors are very typical of that region. So you would not want to replace them with shimla mirch, green shimla mirch. If you are red, you can add. If you don't want to add, go ahead to remove it from the recipe. Not add it. So this is cooking. This will take a good 7 to 10 minutes for the tomatoes to per se cook properly. I am using the recipe says about a pinch of cinnamon powder for that much, very little. Cinnamon powder, pepper, and salt. Now you think that okay, so the induction, because it's cooking on the induction, it's cooking really fast. If you think it's really becoming very dry, you can always add a little water to it. If you want to use, you can go ahead and use stock also. But since this sauce has so many vegetables and everything, mayapua, all of it enough, you would not need stock.
It will be quite flavorsome with all
Yeah.
these ingredients in there.
Precisely. That's why the marination of the fish is very simple, because it's going to cook, bake with the sauce. That's why you put it in the oven primarily, for the fish to sort of take up a little flavor. The Christians around that area would be keeping a fast around Christmas, and that's why they do not consume meat. That's why they replace it with fish. That's the reason why this is like a typical, say, Christmas Eve dish. I'm going to just put this also inside in the kitchen. They just cook it off completely and give it to me. Meanwhile, I'll just sear the fish for you. Just take the tomatoes. Try using a non-stick pan for the fish. You'll be able to do away with like a lot of oil that you otherwise need for frying fish. I'm just going to grill the fish lightly, searing on both sides. I'm not going to cook it completely because it's going to go in the oven also. Like I told you before, you could breadcrumb it, deep fry it. But yeah, traditionally it's done this way. You don't really need to deep fry it. If you just want to add one more step, you can definitely fry it.
Katyayani, your camera is gone off.
It's gone off.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
Am I there?
It had got switched off. Yeah. You're there now.
I was receiving some calls.
Okay.
The laptop cameras, they don't really tend to be so clear.
That's true. The sound is also the sound is also it's better with the phone camera and the phone speaker.
Yeah, especially when we are the ones speaking. So yes, I've again just sort of added enough oil for the pan. That's about it. So the pan size, I don't know if you can see, for me it's really big. I mean, you would definitely have a smaller pan, so you have to cook it in maybe batches. So if you see, since this has been lying for almost an hour, I don't know if you can make out, the fish from the sides has started to get a little white already.
Right.
If you
I know
cut through,
yeah.
if you cut through, it's still going to be pink, but on the edges it started to turn white. That's why you don't want to marinate it for very long.
So does searing of the fish help it cook better, or does it make it taste better? Why do you sear it?
I like the little char that we get on the, I mean, it adds to the flavor definitely. So if you want to bake it directly, then go ahead, bake it directly also. It's not going to make a lot of difference. But yeah, also if you use the fish directly, you want to leave a little more moisture in the baked dish. So since it's a baked dish, you don't want it really like runny or something like that.
Okay.
So you just want to clear it off a little. That's why I'm not completely cooking it, but yeah, this is not going to take much time either. So try doing this on like a really high flame. Don't do it on medium, otherwise you completely cook the fish. And then in the oven, then you just over cooking the fish that you don't really want. And you will get really nice marks on it.
There is a question, why not pan cook it? Why don't you pan cook the fish?
So
But I
pan
guess
cook the entire dish.
pan cook the fish, yeah.
Yeah, you can completely do it. I mean, it's so sort of quick. So ideally, the fish finishes in the oven. If you don't have an oven, if you don't want to do it in the oven, then you can completely do this. You can skip the oven part completely. Grill your fish very nicely in the pan itself. Then you will have to put it for like at least a good 5-7 minutes in the pan itself, which I'm not going to do here. Otherwise, if cook completely, grill your fish, then top it over with sauce. Not a problem.
Okay.
Yeah. I am trying to show you the most authentic way of doing it. You can always mold it a little according to what is available and however easier for you to do. If you see, this is just getting a little golden mark on the side.
Right.
Or on the pieces. That's all that I'm doing. Now, if you see, there's a lot of water that the fish will start using because it's got like a
Yeah,
lot
we
of
can see
moisture.
that. Yeah.
If I do this directly in the oven, then your entire dish where the fish is there in the base is going to become very watery. You don't want really, you don't really want that. So that's the only reason why I'm sort of cooking it off in the pan a little, and then I'm going to finish it in the oven. Also, when it sort of stays, if we leave a little more moisture, so then I can leave that water in the pan itself. I don't really carry it forward to the dish. So once that fish was cured, so that is how your soup was simmering. You get like a really nice color if you continue to sort of cook it on medium flame for like good, been there on the flame for like good 10-15 minutes. I will just fix the seasoning for this, nothing much. So I did not add pepper. I have white pepper, so I'm adding white pepper to it. If you want, you can go ahead and use this normal black pepper, that is also fine. And salt, normal salt. Yeah, so if you see the soup is already thick, if you want to make it thicker, when we started it off, you can sort of just add a little more flour and fat. So to thicken it up much more, but I personally like this. This is a good thick consistency for the soup.
Yeah, it looks soupy enough to be a soup.
Precisely. I mean, you can have it in a mug, you can have it in a bowl, not very puffy. So the soup is done. For the let me also show you the apple crumble. The sauce is cooking, huh? Sauce is cooking. I'm so sorry. Somebody's constantly just trying to get in touch with me. That's why I'm just keep doing that. So this was in the oven for, like I told you, 17 minutes. And if you can see, the crust is sort of nice and golden.
Right. Yes, we can see that.
So when you sort of cut it, I mean, if you sort of scoop it through, then your apples are also mushy. They're not absolutely, like they're not very stiff, but yeah. So I would suggest that when you're doing this, if maybe for a dinner or whatever, once you just maybe assemble them in the ramekins or whatever dish, and then put them in the oven where when you want to really eat it. It's just going to take 20 minutes. So once you're eating something like this, I would suggest that you eat it warm. Don't really keep it. I mean, don't really prep it or bake it beforehand and then sort of serve it later, because the crumb will tend to start becoming soggy after a while. So if you're doing it, you can always assemble them in the dish, keep it aside, put it in the fridge, just bake it last minute whenever you want to serve it. That
Great.
is.
That looks delicious.
Yeah. So the apple, right.
The soup and the soup and the crumble, they both are ready
Yeah, I'll
in
just
less
serve
than an
them
hour.
one. Yes, okay. Also, the fish is almost done. I mean, my oven is so yeah. So the sauce, when it's completely cooked, it's gonna be thick like this,
Mm-hmm.
almost like a, how do I tell you? It's almost like a slightly runnier pav bhaji consistency. If everybody could relate to it, pav bhaji or something like that. Yeah, so it's
Right.
not very thin sauce. It's a really thick sauce.
Mm-hmm.
What I'll do is I had a lot of chopped parsley. This was say about one big handful of parsley. I'm going to add half of it right now and leave just half for the garnish. And maybe a little less of the half. So that once it goes in the oven, it has that little flavor. I want to remove the babies. Yes, and I want to taste for the seasoning. Just taste it before putting it, assembling the entire dish together. So it's pretty tangy. Also, I mean, I like tangy food. I'm fine with it being tangy. If you don't like it, just grab a pinch of normal sugar, say about half a teaspoon, and add. Just for balancing, that depends basically on the tomatoes and the wine. If you skip the wine, then you might not want to add the sugar, because the carrot and the onion is going to make it sweet or maybe balanced enough. But if you're using the wine, then I would just suggest just add a little more sugar to it. That's your sauce. I like it spicy. That's why the recipe says a little Tabasco. If you don't want to add, don't add Tabasco. Just a little, because for the marination for the filling was very simple. Also not very spicy. There was nothing spicy in it. Just a little paprika, a little pepper. So the sauce can have like a little more spice. Not that this sauce is very hot spice. I mean, I like, even if I like spicy food, my spice tolerance is pretty less. So a lot of, I mean, Delhiites will, everybody likes spicy food. So yeah, they'll be definitely be able to take the Tabasco that much. So this is a fish that I'm just going to layer in a dish. Again, this dish is oven safe. If you have something like this, well and good. I'm sure everybody would have like a borosil dish. So I'm just going to put the pieces of fish over in it. If I cut to any piece, I'll show you. it's still going to be a little raw on the inside. So that's why I've left it a little raw.
Right.
Still
You
it's
can see
cooking.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. So because we're not even putting it in the oven for very long, just for say 5 minutes.
And if you're making this dish with chicken, you do the same with the chicken. You sear the chicken
So
before
yeah,
you
so
add
you
the.
stir the chicken. So searing always gets you a little more taste, basically.
Okay.
It's the same concept with your stock as well. If you want the stock to have a little more flavor, you can end up sort of searing the vegetables before you put them. So you
Okay.
can always add like a little oil and sear off all your peels a little.
Right.
Yeah, and then put the water over it. It will always make it more flavorful. But if you're doing it in a hurry, even like if you pop it all together in, not a problem. But yeah, for the meats, I would suggest that you sear them. Especially if you're doing this with chicken, yes, definitely sort of sear it in the pan. And the chicken can also take like a little more searing than the fish. So you could like get really nice golden color on it and then put it in the oven. So I'm not doing anything much or not really doing it very fancy. I've just put the entire fish in like a layer because you just sort of scoop it like a bake and eat. So yeah, and as equal layer as I put, that's like the fish, and then all that vegetable mixture goes over the fish.
That's so simple to do, but I'm sure the flavors must be amazing.
Yeah, precisely. I mean, that's always the case with me. The food could look simple, but it should taste very nice.
Yes.
Also, you should feel, I mean, if you're having fish, you must get the taste of fish. Or if you're having chicken, then you must feel that you're eating chicken. Same with the vegetables.
Mm.
Like I told you, if you're doing this with the tofu, you can grill it and then you can maybe just put it in the oven for like 1 or 2 minutes. Or even if you don't want to put it in the oven, you can do the same thing in the microwave as well. Just put it in the microwave. If you don't want to sort of tax yourself of putting everything in an oven. But yeah, for fish and other things, I suggest that you completely put in the oven for some time, like a little while. So if you see this is not, you might just feel that it doesn't have really any sauce or anything. But once it bakes, it's going to leave a little water. So I mean, it will be a little more saucy for you to consume it.
Wonderful.
Yeah, this goes in the oven. If you want, you can foil it up. If you don't, I mean, if you don't want it to sort of dry up a little, like a lot. But I mean, if this is the dish, I would suggest that you serve it either with some sort of like bread or rice. If you're doing it with bread, then you don't really want it very runny or saucy. You can just do with a little sauce that you can soak up your bread in, any crust of tomato or anything like that. So yeah, so not a lot of moisture that I want, so I'm not going to cover it. And I just put in the oven at 180 again for 5 to 7 minutes. That is.
That is
Depending.
so quick.
Yeah.
Wow. So I hope everybody is getting inspired to cook this dish because it's so simple. Actually, all the three dishes are simple to do and easy to do. And Katyayani, you've explained it and done the demonstration so effortlessly that I'm sure most of the people will be encouraged and will definitely try out what you have shown us to cook this evening. We would like to say thank you to you
Yeah.
for taking the time out and helping us decide what to do for Christmas Eve.
I'm glad that I could
If there are any questions, please feel free to ask these questions. Are there any questions, members? No, I think you explained everything so well that there are no questions at all.
I'm glad if you still want to ask something, you can always text it to Sanjana and she can ask me and I'll let you know to the best of my ability that I know. And it was a lovely session for me as well. This was the first in my studio. We just opened, I mean, we started a month back. So yeah, this is the first demo or a cooking session that we had here in the studio. I'm
So-
glad that the first was with you. And
I'm
yeah,
really glad that we are the first, and we would like to congratulate you and wish you all the
thank
very
you.
best.
Thank
Um,
you.
and I will be sharing the recipe, and also I'll share the menu which you have, so that in case people want to taste some of the dishes which you
Yeah,
have.
sure. I mean, the food that I taught you was a little more simpler so that everybody could easily replicate. I mean, I think I wanted to do something that anybody who does not know a lot about cooking could also, that they would take out the efforts to sort of take out the time and effort to sort of try these because they're not very difficult. And sometimes people just tend to feel that all the things are very complicated and that's why we don't want to cook it. But yeah, since we're doing something that you can do at home, I'm sure everything that I've tried to do, you can replicate at home. For the crumble, you can serve with any ice cream or custard that you want to do. Vanilla ice cream tastes best. You want it's like non-fussy again. You will definitely like it with the vanilla ice cream. If you want to skip the ice cream in winters, you can go ahead with any sort of a custard that you like. Any plain vanilla custard. So yeah, that's about it. And for the fish, it'll just take 5-6 minutes. I don't know if we have enough time. If we continue the session, then you can just see how the fish also looks. So you can serve that with rice.
Does it go with rice, or can you have it with bread? What
Supposed
would?
to be ideally it's eaten with rice, boiled
Okay.
rice. But yeah, you can have it with a nice crusty bread, any sourdough or any garlic bread that you like. You can have
Right.
maybe you can add like a more like a few more dishes like vegetable dishes to the table, and then so you just have like an assortment of few dishes for the menu whenever you
Great.
plan to do this.
Right.
Yeah. So,
Wonderful. I mean, since we are waiting, you can tell us a little bit about how you started this journey of cooking and becoming a chef, because uh,
So I've just started out. I'm all of 24 right now. My father very fond of eating. So yeah, I get it from there. My grandmother, my father, they're all big foodies. All sort of food across the world. I mean, he was very passionate about traveling, and
right.
so it's with him that we used to travel for a lot of family trips across the world, and then he would expect me to taste new things. Sometimes I would be a little averse to tasting new things, maybe like sushi or something when I was really young. But yeah, I've gone ahead to develop like a lot of taste and liking for things like sushi and all. So yes, over the period of time, I started liking cooking, and I used to do, of course, like the smaller, easier things that I could do at home. And then I decided, like, I think around 9th or 10th grade, I wanted to be a chef, like a professional chef.
Mm-hmm.
I don't do much of baking. I'm more of a hot kitchen person. So yeah, I do simpler desserts, so maybe desserts that do not really need to the pin recipes or something. That because for me, I like to go as as I cook, I like to sort of mold the food. Sometimes, I'm not very particular about recipes, not following them to the T, because for me, I've developed the taste to different things over a period of time. So I know what a particular thing should taste like, and then if I don't have a particular ingredient, I can always replace it with something that I have. So that's why when I was also doing the demo, sometimes you feel a little overwhelmed if you don't have any ingredient. Don't worry, you can always skip it with something that you have or replace it. If you even if you don't have, you will end up with something maybe better or different from what you were trying to do. So you're just creating something more. So yeah, I went on
I
to
think
doing
I
my
think
hotel management.
basically what you're trying to tell us is that, be relaxed when you're in the kitchen and improvise.
Yeah, for me, it was always like that. That's how I got into cooking. Because over the weekends, my father would want to do a lot of mutton and this mutton or that chicken over the weekends for everybody. So then I would join in, help him sometimes.
So,
The
so you
chef that I've become now, I don't really like doing the initial bit now a lot, maybe the onion and everything. But yeah, that time it used to be a task for me to do onions and garlic, and I used to enjoy so much because it used to give me a lot of involvement, basically.
Sure.
So yeah, so that's how it started. Then I went on to doing hotel management properly.
Right.
Then I went on to do, work with ITC Moria first, and then Kohinoor. They opened a new property there back in 2019. I graduated in 2018, so I got placed with ITC. Worked there for a while. Came back to Delhi. Then I was here with a kitchen in Saket, where we're doing slow food, slow scratch food. So basically, that is where you sort of try to get all ingredients locally, and you're not using any sauces or proprietary sauces or sort of bottle up sauces, chips, all of that. You're doing everything in house. So yeah, I learned a lot there.
Wonderful.
So yeah, it was a great learning experience.
Thank you for sharing all your inspiration. I hope that the fish is done now, because we don't want to take any more of your time.
That's exactly one thing. So the fish is now done. If you so that's the fish that it looks like. If you can see, there's going to be a little water that I was talking about.
That's right. You can see it around the edges.
Yeah. So the rice or the bread, whatever. Couscous, if you wanted to try anything, any grain that you like. I mean, I would not suggest pastas with this, but any other grain that you like, even pearl barley or something like that.
Oh,
they
wonderful.
Pearl barley. So that you can use. Just sorted with a lot of parsley. There are, for us, it's coriander. For them, it's parsley. They use a lot of parsley in all the food. Other than parsley, they use a lot of dill, which we also use. A lot of you would know that you use dill when you make your sarson ka saag. That's again in winters. So you'll be using a lot of dill now. So yeah, dill and fish also goes very well. So that's the fish.
Great. Looks delicious.
And the crumble that we did today. I don't know. It's sorry, I just touched the hot pan.
Oops. I hope you haven't scolded yourself.
No, we've got used to that much heat with the time. So yeah, that's the crumble, the soup, and the fish. So now maybe you can see me for a little while. Yes.
Great.
So that's the food we did.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure seeing you at work, and how effortlessly you've done all these three things. And I'm sure many of the members are going to make it and try it, and we will surely share feedback with you.
Sure. Always share some nice pictures. Tag me also on Instagram. We have a page now.
Sure.
Check out the website. Maybe order more complicated things that we do here. So that you don't really have to.
And we wish you all the very best with your ventures and Wish you all the very best with your venture, and 3 cheers.
Thank you. Keep peace, so we say. And please stay safe.
Yeah. And I would like to thank the viewers for joining in. Today the session was longer than normal, but then here we are. And I hope you all try these dishes, and do let us know what you think of these preparations. Do post your pictures on Chilling. I'll be sharing the recipe shortly, and with that we end today's session, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Till then, stay safe, stay well. Have a nice evening.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Bye everyone.